Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Awesome. Now I can hear you. Hi, good
All right.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. So nice to meet you virtually. But thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is the Decent Work Show, another time to discuss important issues as it regards young Nigerian youth. Thank you so much. We have our guest already here with us, Molade Adeni. Did I pronounce that correctly? Adeni.
Perfect. You're good.
All right. Thank you so much. So, briefly, I'm just going to be introducing the show, and of course the network. So, this is the Decent Work Show, hosted by the Nigerian Youth SDG Network, which is a sustainable initiative that works with youth organizations and stakeholders towards leadership development for youth, and also encourage participation of youth in the developmental goals in their communities. And the Decent Work Show is a bi-weekly talk show that bridges, the gap between youth and stakeholders working to improve access to decent work. And our discussions are basically, targeted around youth employment, challenges, that youth face in Nigeria, and how to overcome these challenges and of course get themselves the kind of work that they deserve. And today we already have our guest here, so I'm not going to be doing the introduction. She's here with us. So please, can you introduce yourself for us?
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I mean, I know that people are logging in from different time zones. So it's great to be on the show. I'd like to, first of all, say a huge thank you to the Decent Work Show for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name is Molade Adeniyi. I'm the CEO of WAVE, West Africa Vocational Education. We're an NGO that, we focus on tackling youth unemployment across West Africa. And we're located here in Nigeria.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I know you're a very busy person, but agreeing to be here with us today is a great deal for us, and we truly, truly appreciate you. So
Thank you.
I'll get straight right into our questions. Now, for
Sure.
everyone who comes to our show, we first of all want to know their perspective of what decent work means, because this show is all about decent work. So we would want to know, what does decent work mean to you as a person?
Okay, so before I talk about what it means to me as a person, I like to define things. So I like to go and look for, is there actually an official definition of certain things, especially from who are the sort of key players or the organizations that we sort of look up to. So I found this definition. So please permit me to read it, and then I will talk about what it means to
Okay.
me personally. From the International Labour Organization, the ILO, as many people may know, defines decent work as productive work for women and men in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human dignity. So basically, when I think of decent work, I think of work where where you're paid a fair income. And from a Nigeria perspective, for instance, work that at least pays you the minimum wage. Now, regardless of what anybody thinks about whether the minimum wage is enough or not, there is a minimum wage, that there's a national minimum wage. The work must at least pay you a fair income. The work must have safe working conditions. So when I think of safe working conditions, I consider how many hours a week are you working. So if it's a work that is more than 40 hours a week or 45 hours a week, it starts to get on the borderline. There are people here who work 60 hours, 100 hours. Employers expect them to work for that long. Maybe no rest, no breaks. So some people don't get annual leave. Some people don't get lunch breaks, etc. When we start to broach, or we start to get into those conditions, then it's moving away from decent work and work that guarantees a secure form of employment. So if you're in a job, so let me give an example of someone in the building construction. So you're a builder, but your employer has not given you things to keep you safe. So you don't have hard hats, you don't have safety helmets, you don't have gloves, you don't have the eye goggles if you're doing electrical work. That is not decent work, because the employer is exposing you to certain risks that is potentially detrimental to your health and could ultimately lead to death. So when I think of decent work, it's an environment where you get fair income, it's a secure environment, you have safe working conditions, and you also have, your work hours are not, they're reasonable, and you have adequate breaks, adequate, lunch breaks, annual leave, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that's how I like to think of decent work.
Thank you so much. I like the scope of your idea for decent work. It encompasses all the areas that the United Nations have also highlighted of what decent work means to them, and it's not different from what we've been getting all through the show. And I'm really glad that we are on the same page on that. So next, I'm just going to be going straight into the next question. And the next question is to also get your understanding of what do you understand by the underserved African youth? Who do you see as the underserved African youth?
So when I think of the underserved, so let's even talk about community first of all, before we even start talking about the young person. When I think of underserved, I think of people who basically do not have access to services or basic services. So when we look at it from a health perspective, so people who live in underserved communities do not have adequate access to medical care, for instance. So if you have to walk hours and hours before you can access healthcare, it means you live in an underserved community. So let's talk about the underserved Africa youth from an Africa perspective. The way that I see it are underserved African youths are youths that are in that do not have access to certain basic services, such as good quality education, such as job opportunities, such as even simple things. When we think about the world of work today, simple things as if I live in a community where I do not have access to communication, such as telecoms, internet access, then it is an underserved community. It means that the things that we need for basically, so we're not talking about luxury. So we're not talking about having access to luxury items. We're not talking about having access to a spa or a hotel or all of those. It's really what are the basic things that you need to be able to live a just live a comfortable life. So I talk about light, I talk about power, I talk about healthcare, I've talked about access to education, I've talked about access to jobs. That's where we see a lot of people migrating from rural to urban or suburban areas, because where they are, they just cannot access the jobs, they just cannot access the opportunities. So they have to relocate. So for me, when I think of the underserved African youth, I put all of those youths living in such communities with inadequate access to basic services as underserved.
Amazing,
I hope that's
amazing.
clear.
Yes, it's very clear. And I just want to go over what you've said again. That a typical underserved African youth to you is one that does not have access, to basic needs, basic things that they need to live well as a human being. They do not have access to that, and that is the underserved communities. That is the underserved African youth. Thank you so much for that. That's your perspective. So now, because we're talking about upskilling the underserved African youth, and we want to get some. We know that you have been able to. In fact, your NGO is doing so well. They help a lot of people, and you've come
Thank
across
you.
different sets of people, both the people who are served, so to speak, and then those who are also underserved, right? So we want you to please share your experience with us on practical steps that these categories of young people can take. People who are coming from the underserved communities who can take to be better positioned at work, because I believe some of these things also get into their personality. So for you who are working with different people, we want us to share with us, practical steps that these people can take and help them to be better positioned at work.
Okay, so let me let me give a few tips, and I think that this is extremely important for people to pay attention to. And I wrote down a few things because I didn't want to forget. I think one of the first things for me is anywhere, whether you're underserved or not underserved, you have to believe in yourself. No one will believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. It's very hard for people to believe in you when you have put yourself down. Which leads me to my second point, which is a mindset shift or a mindset orientation. So I talk to a lot of youth, especially in the underserved communities or underserved African youth, as we have defined. And they talk a lot about the things that they don't have. And that's why they cannot access some of the opportunities that are out there. Now, the reality is those things you don't have they're not going to change easily. But what can change easily is your attitude towards them. How do you relate with them? How do you interact with them? Do you truly let it define what you're going to do? Or do you then begin to ask yourself, okay, these things are here right now. What can I do with myself to begin to get myself out of this? And we have seen, like he said, at Wave, we have seen over and over again, many people who come from underserved communities, underserved youth, who have who are diligent, who have grit and resilience, and who are going to, despite the circumstances they find themselves, despite the inadequacies that the communities bring, they push through. So once you believe in yourself and you understand that I can pull out of this, you need to start giving yourself that mindset shift. And that mindset shift can only come from the people that you surround yourself with. So who are you talking to? So that would be my number 3 tip. Who are you talking to? Who are you keeping company with? Who are you sharing thoughts and your dreams and your hopes and your aspirations with? If all of you are sitting together and saying, woe is me, my life is this, we don't have this, we don't have that, it's very difficult to move out of there. But are you finding people, and I'm not talking about false optimism here. I'm not talking about finding people who aspire for things that are unrealistic, but it's to sit down and say, okay, we've been dealt a bad hand. No problem. How do we then get ourselves out of this bad hand? And one way of doing that, which leads me to my number 4 tip, is to begin to identify your skills gap. So one of the things we hear employers talk about a lot is, I have job vacancies. I need people at work, but there are certain skills that I'm looking for that the young person just doesn't have. So I am struggling to fill these positions. There are millions of young people out there who say, I want work, but they don't have the skills. So there is this skills gap. So first of all, identify where your own skills gap are. And you can do this through research. I put down here asking people. I like to say Google is your friend. Use Google for research on what are the top skills that Nigerian employers are looking for. And there's lots of research out there. Now, once you've identified those skill gaps, number 5, I think I am right now, is to begin to now bridge that gap. Remember that I said underserved African youth come from communities where they lack some basic services, but there are lots of free courses. So you don't need, it shouldn't be a factor of, I don't have enough money to enroll in a course. There is Coursera, there is Linda, there is LinkedIn Learning, and of course there's Wave. We offer, soft skills training for young people to help bridge this gap that the employers are looking for. So all of that data you spend surfing Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, save some. I mean, I think some people need some of that to just help them cool off after a tough day. But save some of that data and use that data for learning. And that's how you begin to bridge the gap. And then my other tip out there is look for volunteer opportunities. So yes, I know that we go to work to get money, but a lot of things that a lot of us don't have is the experience, and employers are looking for that. And before we begin to change the mindset of employers around hiring for hiring people with long work experience, why don't you go out there and volunteer your services? Look for internship opportunities. They might not pay you the big salary that you're looking for today, or you think you might be worth. And I use the word think because a lot of us sometimes overestimate what we are worth. But look for those opportunities. What they do for you is they help you build your skills. So there's somebody down the road who's running a business. He's looking for someone to come and help him do some, even if it's just basic administrative, all you're doing is photocopying. Render your services and say, you know what, I can come, I can make tea, I can make coffee, I can do some photocopying for you. I can do some filing for you. And I would come in 3 days a week. And while you are there, you are learning, you are honing your skills, and then you begin to have experience that you put on your CV. And lastly, let's remember that life is all about sales. How are you selling yourself? When I go and search for you, or when I bump into you on any of your digital media pages, and a lot of people are focused on looking at digital media these days, what am I seeing? Am I seeing you at the beach all of the time? Am I seeing you partying? Or am I seeing you, what's the creative side of you? What is that thing about you that you want? You're selling yourself with every single thing that you do. So sell yourself. Talk about something that is important to you. I don't know, climate change, politics, whatever it is. People look, employers are drawn to people that have a variety of skills. So again, I mean, these are just a few tips that I sort of came up with, but there's quite a lot more. The bottom line is you own your life, right? And you need to do every single thing possible to make sure that you are ready and prepared for the opportunities out there. The opportunities are not necessarily going to come for you. You need to fight for it. And the only way to fight for it is to make sure that you are setting yourself up rightly, such that when these opportunities come, you're ready to actually grasp them and begin to take them on one after the other.
Amazing. Amazing. And I'm sure everyone listening to us, if you're listening right now, I hope you're really writing down these tips. I'm just going to share some again, as she has said. And one that really stood out for me is the mindset shift. Because whether we like it or not, these things really affect our mind. So first of all, you need to change your mind. And then the people you talk to, the people you plan with, the people you talk about your plans with, they are also important in upskilling yourself to that job or that career or that life that you really want, regardless of where you come from. And of course, bridging the gap, knowing the skill set that you don't have, and then making efforts to bridge this gap. So thank you so much. The next question is, like I said before, your organization is doing a lot, and we really, really want to learn, and we want our audience to also learn. And thank you so much for also mentioning your organization as one of the places people can go to, and get some of these skills to bridge the gaps that they need to fill in the workplace. So please, can you share with us like 2 examples in your line of work where you have helped young people who were not ready for a particular job, but then you help them to upskill to the level where they can actually apply and get these positions that they really want?
Oh, wow. I have so many stories and I'd love to tell stories. How long do we have?
So
Okay.
this is we still have some time. We have
Okay.
about
All right.
15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We have about
Okay. So I love to share the story of Emmanuel. Emmanuel was a young 18-year-old who had graduated from senior secondary. He had his SSC. Um, Unfortunately, from the background he came from, he was unable to go to university. So his parents were unable to afford to send him to university. He had younger ones who they were also trying to put through school. And Emmanuel had to go and look for a job to be able to support his family. Emmanuel went from place to place asking for work, and all the employers kept on turning him down. They kept on asking him for things like, oh, you need a university degree. We only hire people with university degree. Simple jobs though, jobs like just a shop assistant job, or maybe even to just work in a restaurant. It was crazy. Emmanuel just couldn't find any work. Eventually he got a job at a filling station, at a petrol station, and he became a petrol station attendant. That was the only thing he could find. At that time, Emmanuel was earning about 9,000 naira a month, and he was working about 60 hours a week. So again, we talk about decent work, and if you remember some of my definitions, but that was all Emmanuel could find, and his family needed it. So Emmanuel, took that job and was diligent at it. His boss liked him because Emmanuel would always come in on time. There was some certain things about him. He had already trained himself to have a certain level of work ethic. But Emmanuel knew that he wanted more. He could do more. He heard about Wave. and he came into our program. Emmanuel came into a program where, wave up skills, specifically on soft skills. Because when we talk to employers, I mean, there's soft skills, some people call them life skills, some people call them human skills. So skills like critical thinking, how to problem solve, how to work as a team, time management, all of those sort of skills that employers are looking for. An employer doesn't want someone, and employer wants someone who will use their initiative. Where there's a problem on the job, you are able to use your initiative to try to solve it, or at least be able to think through the options. So Emmanuel came, 2 weeks on the job, 2 weeks training, and then we send them on a 2 week, what we call a job shadow, which is like an internship. Emmanuel was so brilliant at his job. Remember that I said he had no skills, he had no prior experience. The employer hired him as a kitchen assistant. Emmanuel took the job. He really didn't want to be a kitchen assistant, but at that time he took a job in a up class, restaurant in Lagos. He went from earning 9,000 to 15,000. Still not very ideal, but he worked very hard at it. But because of all of the skills that he has learned and all of the prioritization and all of the diligence and work ethic, Emmanuel quickly moved from being a kitchen assistant to being a waiter. His salary bumped up to 30,000 naira and started to creep up. He was now working decent hours. After a year, Emmanuel was now earning about 45,000 naira a month. And Emmanuel just continued to build on that. And the reason why I love Emmanuel's story is today, Emmanuel is now the floor manager in this restaurant, and he's earning upwards of 120,000 naira. And for us, we hear that story over and over and over again. But it takes a certain kind of person. Yes, Wave is available to help you bridge that gap, but you need to come prepared and ready to make a change for yourself. I like an acronym, and I was going to save this to last, but I'll say it now. We always say start small, learn fast, and grow big. A lot of people don't want to start small. They don't want to learn at all, but they want to grow big. But unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. There needs to be a way where you need to put in a level of hard work. Remember that I said some of us are dealt a more difficult hand than others. When you realize that, is how do you use that for your strength, as a strength for yourself? How do you use that to build grit and resilience and diligence? Employers notice these things. And one of the things that we are big on at Wave is we work with employer partners who treat their staff fairly. So we have a big pool of employer partners who are looking for hardworking people who are ready to give their all and grow with the organization. So that's Emmanuel's story. I will quickly talk about Blessing. Blessing again came to us. She had she had just SSC. She was looking to go for her OND HND, but she needed to put some funds together. Blessing again had tried to look for work. Blessing does hair. She's very good with her hands, and she does hair. So there was Blessing making some small change from helping people in the neighborhood to do her hair, whilst looking for work where she could earn some more to continue her schooling. But again, Blessing just couldn't find the work. She would find the work, and then employers, she realized that, after 1 month, 2 months, the employers were not happy with her. Again, Blessing heard about Wave through a friend, came in. She then, I think Blessing's story is she realized what customer service really means. How her idea of excellent customer service was completely different to what she thought than what she heard at Wave. With that skill, she got an admin job, where she was, admin customer service, where she was receiving visitors, taking down small telephone notes, etc., etc. And because of the customer service skills that she learned, Blessing was able to then move from a junior customer service assistant to a senior customer service assistant. She stayed on that job for about 3 years. She got the money that she needed. She went back to school. When she was leaving, her employer said to her, Blessing, we don't want you to go. Can you still work with us at the weekends? So go to school, we'll give you all the time you need to go, but we need you to still come back and mentor some other people. So again, these are stories where people were not qualified for this role. They didn't even think they could get into this roles, but they took the time out to understand the gaps that they had. They worked hard to, bridge those gaps. And when they got into the job, they gave it every single thing that they had, and they began to succeed. So these are just, some examples. Like I said, I could share many, many, many more stories, but it is very, very possible. It starts with that mindset shift and orientation that we talked about earlier on.
Awesome. I am so inspired by these stories. I wish I could just keep hearing more of these stories. So, so inspired. So this is for any young person feeling like you're undeserved here. There is really something for you to do. You just have to, put yourself together and be determined, like she has already said. So, here's a final. We're almost at the end of the show. So we just want to. I know you've said a lot, and I just really, really hope my audience are writing down these things. However, you can always, come back and watch the replay and get more of these insights. So I wanted to just, wrap up everything that you have said in some final thoughts, specifically to people who are struggling, with access, efficiency, having a lot of struggle to, get a particular job because they feel like where they're coming from, they don't have access to this thing, and of course they cannot be this person. Your final thoughts to wrap all of these amazing things that you've shared with us today.
Final thoughts. What would I say as final thoughts? I mean, I think one of the things that I like to tell people is take every opportunity that comes your way, and use it very well. So a lot of us are always looking for the big opportunity. And we say things like, when I start earning a certain amount of money, when I start getting a certain kind of opportunity, I will be a certain kind of way. Or it's because I'm not earning this money that I'm this way, that I'm just doing this job anyhow. The reality is, the same way you treat your sort of small opportunity today is the same way you will treat your big opportunity tomorrow, if that big opportunity comes. So ask yourself, am I ready to put in the work? It's Nothing in life comes easy. Let's stop saying things in life are easy, or saying things like, I cannot come and kill myself. I hear that, and I think it's very important that we are self-caring and we're taking care of ourselves. But as we are doing that, we also need to ask ourselves, I need to get out of bed to actually do something. You need to start making baby steps. They say it's little drops that make a mighty ocean. You need to start today. Ask yourself those tough questions. Find the people around you that can help build you up and push you in the right direction, and go out for it. And finally, it's okay to fail. I say that it's better to have tried and failed than to not have even tried at all, because at least now you know. But when you fail, I love the term that it says fail forward. So fail, pause. What could I have done differently? What am I going to do next time? And go at it again. That way you are failing and you're moving forward. You are no longer where you were, and you're a step closer to where you need to be. So that would be my
Awesome.
final thoughts.
Awesome. Fail forward. Whatever happens, make sure you're taking a step forward and not backwards. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much insight, so much wisdom, and so much inspiration for people who felt like they can't do these things. And we are really, really grateful, for you being here today with us. And to my audience, thank you so much for being with us today. Again, it's a Decent Work show. And you can visit our website at www.decentwork.ng to, have access to all our other episodes, and even to rewatch, and listen to this in particular episode. Thank you. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much, Melody. We really
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much for having me. Bye.